A Category 4 storm that made landfall in Haiti at 7 o'clock this morning Eastern Time. The current time 4 p.m. UTC, 5 p.m. here in the UK, and midday on the East Coast. And most people, I imagine, want to know not only about Haiti and Cuba, but also for Florida, where hurricane watches have sprung into effect for Deerfield Beach to the Volusia-Brevard County line. There have also been tropical storm watches extending as far south as the Middle Keys. Let me try and get the exact extent of those warnings, and in fact I may as well go ahead and reiterate all the warnings that are in effect. My name's Nathan Foy, hello. We'll be joined by the Skype team at some point, who generally talk about the storm with me, but at the moment I'm all alone. So if you've got any questions or comments for us whilst we're on the air, do send a message. Obviously the flow of comments has been extremely fast over the last 18 to 20 hours that we've been streaming, so it is quite possible that I'll miss any questions, but we've also got the several other mediums that you can use. Force 13 on Facebook and Twitter, search Force 13 all in text, or you can add Fool 13 on Skype, that's FOOL13, if you want to talk to me at any time. You can see the latest satellite imagery. The storm made landfall on Haiti. It still had 145 mile an hour winds, and last we heard it was still with 145 mile an hour winds. That is probably decreasing now, looking at the latest frames, but I would maintain that it's certainly a Category 4 storm still, and heading towards Cuba. You can just about see the storm's eye on that latest frame, just north of the peninsula, the southern peninsula, which I always forget the name of, and is now cleared land. Obviously that's just the eye, not the actual winds and heavy rain from the storm. And Cuba, the eastern tip of Cuba, is now starting to feel the effects, as is the southernmost islands of the Bahamas and perhaps the Turks and Caicos Islands. As well as, of course, the Dominican Republic. It looks like Jamaica are in the clear now. Indeed, they think so. They've lifted all their warnings. And let me just bring to you the latest right now in terms of actual warnings that are in effect for all of these areas. So, a hurricane watch has been issued for Deerfield Beach, Florida, to the Volusia-Brevard County line. But before we go on to that, a hurricane warning remains in effect for Haiti, the Cuban provinces of Guantanamo, Santiago de Cuba, Holguin, Granma, and Las Tunas. Southeastern Bahamas, including the Inaguas, Mayaguana, Acklins, Crooked Island, Long Key, and Ragged Island. The Central Bahamas, including Long Island, Exuma, Rum Key, San Salvador, and Cat Island. And the Northwestern Bahamas, effectively the whole country, including the Abarcos, Andros Island, Berry Islands, Bimini, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama Island, and New Providence. Hurricane warning. Hurricane watch is in effect for the Cuban province of Camagüey and Deerfield Beach, the Volusia-Brevard County line in Florida. A tropical storm warning is still in effect for the Dominican Republic, from Barahona westward to the border with Haiti, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. They were under a hurricane watch until recently. A tropical storm watch is in effect for the Dominican Republic, from Predo Plata westward to the border with Haiti, from 7 Mile Bridge to south of Deerfield Beach, Florida, and on Lake Okeechobee. A hurricane watch means that hurricane conditions are possible within the watch area. A watch is typically issued 48 hours before the anticipated first occurrence of tropical storm force winds, conditions that make outside preparations difficult or dangerous. Essentially, those who are under hurricane watches in Florida, you've got 48 hours until the storm potentially becomes a hazard. Tropical storm watch means that tropical storm conditions are possible within the watch area over the same time period. Interests elsewhere in Hispaniola, the Florida Peninsula, and the Florida Keys should monitor the progress of Matthew. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center, its position as of 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time was 18.9 north, 74.3 west, which would make it 35 miles north-northeast of Tiburon in Haiti, 90 miles south of the eastern tip of Cuba. The maximum sustained winds were 145 miles an hour, moving due north. minimum central pressure was 950 millibars, significantly higher than it was last night when it was 934. So I'm not sure what exactly the tone of the first hour is going to be, but I'm just going to, comment on what the storm is doing right now and maybe what you would expect in Florida. Of course, they declared a state of emergency there yesterday, which I thought was not necessarily odd, but it's not really the right terminology. I'd have rather called it a state of preparedness. And people in Florida should definitely be preparing. That's the possibility of the storm affecting Florida, a distinct possibility, but by no means is it a certainty yet. But people should be preparing for the possibility of taking action rather than actually taking the action itself. And I'm going to keep saying that for around another 24 hours. But you have 48 hours right now, at worst, to prepare for the storm if you're in the hurricane watch areas and the tropical storm watch areas. And of course, the hurricane watches may be extended further north in due course. But that's not occurred yet. I don't believe there's any bad weather occurring in Florida itself right now. Not really too much to say. And actually, I'm just looking at the imagery, and I just thought for a brief moment that the hurricane watch had been extended, but it's not the case. So let's actually, I created a graphic earlier. Well, first of all, let's show you the latest National Hurricane Center forecast. I think this is up to date here. I think this was the latest. What time does it say there? 11 a.m. Yes, that's the latest forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center out to 3 days. I don't really want to show the 5-day cone because there's a lot of uncertainty around it. I want to be as certain as we can be about what we're looking at here. And 3 days out, you can see where the storm's expected to be. So it's changing a little bit continuously. The model's shifting west, and well, that's to the 2-day period. That seems pretty clear cut now with the models in good agreement. And you can also see the watches and warnings in effect there illustrated. The red zones, the hurricane warning, the blue zones, tropical storm warning, the pinkish zones being hurricane watches, and the yellows being tropical storm watches. So extending to the Middle Keys, which is quite interesting because the Middle Keys are well outside the forecast cone, as is all the tropical storm watch areas. I suppose they're concerned about the storm being a major hurricane as they're forecasting at that point, and the storm's influence being so expansive that it will affect those areas with tropical storm force winds. And then the possibility beyond 2 days that the storm will head towards the coast of northern Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. But having said that, I'm not sure on a landfall in those areas. The storm could stay offshore and follow the coast around as it moves north and then northeast. As for intensity, they think it will be a major hurricane on the whole forecast out to 3 days. That is winds of 115 miles per hour or higher, category 3 or higher. And that's obviously going to be a concern, particularly in the Bahamas right now. It's going to be within 48 hours that it will be affected. And you can see that the track is still going almost directly over the capital, Nassau, of the Bahamas. And it's not looking like a good scenario there, as well as, of course, in Haiti and Cuba. With regards, I know a lot of people have asked questions about whether news has come about from Haiti. I know as little as anyone else who is watching the stream on that right now. I know there's been a handful, a low number of fatalities reported so far, and It is a low number at the moment, but that's quite concerning considering the storm hasn't even left the vicinity of Haiti. Usually the news only filters through as the time goes on. But if you do have any news for us, if you're watching, do let me know, keep me informed. And it's quite difficult to do things on my own here whilst displaying information and trying to tell you what's going on at the same time. But we will be joined by other team members later on in this hour, I am led to believe, and during the rest of the stream. If you've got any questions, do send them in. And that's Matthew. You may also be aware that Tropical Storm Nicole has formed to the northeast of Matthew, away from any land areas, and that's likely the way it's going to remain. It's probably going to be heavily influenced by Matthew, and that will limit its strength massively. Elsewhere in the western Pacific, we have Typhoon Chaba, which is affecting the Korean Peninsula and Japan, but is weakening substantially. And one or two other areas that could form in the Pacific, but the main feature, as you would expect, is Hurricane Matthew, with winds of 145 miles per hour. If there's anything you'd like me to display here on the screen, just let me know as well. I'm sort of almost your servant here. And as far as I know, just looking at a comment, 2 deaths in Haiti confirmed and 4 in the Dominican Republic, I believe. And that is probably going to change, as probably going to get worse as the time progresses. But we don't know much beyond those hard facts just yet. What you could anticipate, what we were talking yesterday about a whole meter of rainfall, 40 inches for southwestern Haiti, and that in itself would be a massive problem for Haiti, a huge issue, and potentially a catastrophe, you could say. It's the strongest storm. It's tied actually for the strongest storm to ever make landfall in Haiti, of which we know, and it's the strongest storm to hit Haiti in 50 years, since Inez of 1966, almost to the day. Whilst I briefly take a look at everything else going on, George Tanos says, what about this massive system heading straight for Trinidad? That I'm unaware of, but I will acquaint myself with it right now and let you know my thoughts. I do see a system there, yes. That is a rather interesting feature, I have to say. And I'm trying to get some close-up imagery of that looking at it. The National Hurricane Center haven't marked it as anything, so I imagine that it's not going to be a tropical threat. But yeah, there is some tropical disturbances, maybe plural disturbances, but certainly a lot of convective activity out in the central Atlantic, just off the coast, well, a few hundred miles east of Trinidad and Barbados. And then you've got Nicole and Matthew, and then the eastern part of the Atlantic's pretty quiet, and a huge frontal system in the northern part of the Atlantic and over the US East Coast right now, which is responsible for bringing Matthew upwards rather than a typical Caribbean track of it moving towards the west, towards Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, Cuba, the Gulf of Mexico. And this is one of very few storms to take a track like this. I think we figured out it was about 5%, if that, of storms in the Caribbean take this sort of track, northward movement. So a very strange one, not unprecedented, but strange indeed. The closest analogue is still Hurricane Hazel of 1954, though I would say that it's not a great analogue, and that shows quite how unique this storm is at this time. I'll just bring along a wide shot of the Atlantic for those who wanted to see the whole picture. I'll just go and grab that now. Have to bear with me for just a second as I grab the whole imagery of the Atlantic. Yes, a lot of clicking going on, and it will appear on the screen around now. There it is. So there's the latest across the whole Atlantic right now. This paints the picture pretty nicely. The Gulf of Mexico is quiet, the Western Caribbean's quiet, the Central Caribbean is dominated by Matthew, and then you've got Nicole, which is that little flare up off to the northeast or east-northeast of Matthew, and then that area of disturbances to the southeast of Barbados and east of Trinidad, which you can see slowly moving towards the west. I've not seen much come out of it on the models, so I can't imagine that it is going to be a tropical cyclone, but who knows. Current time 4:16 UTC, and we're just waiting for information, really, just as much as anyone else is on the storm. And of course we're talking about Florida as well, which is under a hurricane watch. Now let me bring up a graphic that Force 13 made not long ago, showing the potential for tropical storm impacts in Florida. I just want to point out these percentages. This is percentage chance of receiving tropical storm force winds. So it's a likely now, more than 50% chance, but not a certainty that it will happen yet. The Bahamas, it's virtually certain that we'll see tropical storm force winds and much more. And then you've got Florida, 60% chances going up to Daytona Beach at this time. That's Force 13's latest graphic on potential impacts in Florida, and as it becomes more assured that the storm is heading that way at high intensity, then those percentage chances may well rise. Let's not forget there's been plenty of false alarms before. Erica last year being a notable example, where it was forecasting a hurricane landfall for Florida and it never even got close in the end. I don't think this is the same. I do think Florida will see something from this storm, and the Bahamas is going to have a rough time with the storm, just like they did last year. The same areas that got hit by Hurricane Joaquin will probably see Matthew at some significant intensity, and the northern Bahamas as well, being affected by their first storm in some time. I'm not sure when the last storm of, well, I guess it was Irene of 2011, the last storm of such intensity over the areas, if the forecast comes to pass. So I'll bring you back to the wide Atlantic view, showing all those systems in the Atlantic, and shortly, I believe, we're going to be joined by Hank, who was on our stream last night, and I'm going to try and get him here now. But that is the latest with Matthew, and we'll be monitoring its intensity. It's going to be a weakening trend at the moment, whilst it's over the land areas, and it's slow moving as well, and that's certainly not good news for Haiti, for Cuba, which is going to have issues on the eastern coast as well. And let's not forget the warm waters in the area too have played a big part in the storm being of Category 4 intensity for so long. It's managed to do it now for I believe we're now at 114 hours, which is nearly 5 days. And that's the third longest in this century so far, after Isabel and Ivan. So, Stephen wants me to show water vapor and wind shear graphs. So, I will do that now, and again, you have to bear with me just for a moment whilst I go and get those. It's difficult doing it alone, but we're here. Okay, so the water vapor imagery here. Now, this tells us, you can see there's dry air over the Gulf of Mexico. It's slowly moving off to the east as a result of the trough moving off to the east. And a little bit of dry air around Nicole. That's why Nicole's not looking much good right now. And you can really see it brings it out well, that disturbance, that low latitude disturbance to the east of Trinidad as well. So that's rather interesting down there, and yeah, I do wonder about that one. But there's Matthew dominating the scene in the centre, of course becoming less moist as time goes on, as the storm moves into Haiti. It's going to be dumping huge amounts of rain over the area, and Cuba's just about to receive significant amount of rain as well. So George asked me about Trinidad. I'm gonna take a look further at that because I am intrigued by it. So I'm just going to first show the latest wind shear chart, which will probably tell us more about the situation. Is this up to date? Yes. Now, if you've not seen a chart like this before, you may be very confused to begin with. Let me... Okay, now trying to resize it. Doesn't let me. So you can see the storm there over Haiti, and you see its low wind shear environment around it. So you've got the colours first of all, and you've got that scale off to the right hand side. That scale shows the amount of knots of wind shear around the storm. High amounts are bad for the storm. The storm wants to see low amounts of wind shear, which helps it intensify. Wind shear is a detriment to a storm almost always. And you can see it's surrounded by high amounts of wind shear, prohibitively high, to the west, to the northwest, to the northeast. But I have to say, the lowest amount of those high areas is where the storm is headed. So that is some cause for concern, and it's staying the same and perhaps decreasing, certainly over the southern Bahamas. So this storm is certainly not done, and there is, I would say, room for re-intensification over the islands. The rest of the Caribbean pretty low, and you can see high wind shear over the Lesser Antilles as well. I'm just going to see what some of the models say about that disturbance near the island of Trinidad and the Windward Islands. I believe we're joined by Hank, by the way.
Yes, I'm here. I'm gonna have to talk pretty lowly because, you know, I'm at school right now. The only place I can really be is outside, because anywhere inside is just gonna be, you know, way too loud. If I didn't think this was important, I wouldn't be on this live stream. Because, you know, obviously we have a pretty serious situation going on in Haiti. Sorry about the background noise, it's kind of inevitable at this point.
Yeah, we can barely hear it. Just looking at the models briefly,
okay.
It doesn't really show anything coming out of that area of interest, which we may call it now, east of the Windward Islands, though the possible suggestion that it will graze the northern coast of Venezuela and Colombia and possibly deliver some rainfall, but it's not going to become a tropical cyclone, I can tell you that much.
What area of interest?
There's a flare-up. Well, it's not an invest, but there's a flare-up to the southeast of Barbados. So that's pretty interesting, but it's going to be a rain event, I would say, that one.
Yeah, that's... I don't know if that's probably not going to end up being something. Yeah, we also got another useless named storm today, which is annoying. Yeah. I'm only going to be here for about another 45 minutes. You know, I have some Pop-Tarts and a pack of Starburst. I'll make it through for the lunch hour.
Stephen has suggested just skip classes, Hank. We won't tell anyone.
No, I'm on my lunch hour, Steven, so I'll be fine. Classes don't start till 12:45 my time. Uh, that's about it's about 17:15 UTC. I'm pretty sure.
17:45 probably.
No, seven. It starts 12:15 my time.
Oh, you
so
said 12:45. Did he say
sorry.
12:45? I don't know anymore. Maybe I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
So, what's your latest thoughts on the storm and its presentation right now?
Well, the latest. And I'm looking at the visual for the first time, and it's looking. It looks like it just passed over land. To be honest, I really don't have too much to say because it's the first time I'm really looking at the storm today. But it looks like it might have a slight chance to kind of intensify in between before it gets to Cuba.
You think it'll do a bit of a Malheur?
Not that extreme, but like maybe like a few, maybe at least 5 miles an hour, maybe it dropped by a couple millibars. Not as extreme as Malheur then.
Yeah, I guess. Interesting. But Malheur proved that the storms can do that. And just let me see if I can find out the sea surface temperatures over that particular area. I expect they're high, but I've not actually clarified. Sea surface temperatures usually need to be 26 Celsius for a hurricane to sustain itself. And yes, they're really high, 30 degrees over that area. So it's prime.
Also very high oceanic heat content in that area.
Yeah, so it's not looking good for Cuba.
Yeah. I think the only thing that really going to get in the way of the storm from intensifying will be land interaction. That's in this next 12 hours. Not this entire lifetime, just its next couple hours. Can you, by any chance, post a link to the stream in the live room?
Well, it's Force 13 live, and if you are watching us on the live stream, by the way, you might want to bookmark it because we're going to be here for some time, and every time we do a live stream, we've been doing live streams for since July 2015, every time there's been a storm event. So in future we will be here on this very page, so you might want to bookmark it, and when there's a big storm active, odds are we'll be here.
Yeah, I got it. All right.
Yeah.
So just looking at some of the comments, I see a bunch of people saying, stuff about Florida. I know this happened also last night, and it's going to happen again today.
We can talk about it just a little bit more than we could last night.
Yeah, we have a slightly better idea of what's going to happen. Hurricane watches are in effect for parts of the Florida coastline.
Yes.
And tropical storm watches, parts of the Keys and Lake Okeechobee, I believe.
Yeah, and I think those tropical storm watches are correct. Even though they're outside the cone, it's because this storm could be significant in size to the extent where tropical storm conditions could be felt as far away as Marathon.
It's going to grow in size as it begins to get further north in latitude. This is very typical with storms, not just in the Atlantic but all across the world, that they just grow in size. Usually become weaker in wind speed, but normally they get a little bit deeper because they might begin to go through the extratropical transition. I don't know if Matthew's probably not going to go extratropical until it gets past at least the Carolinas, but it's still too early to tell.
Well, let's go back to those sea surface temperatures, and I expect if it was to ride the Gulf Stream, that could be the worst case, because if it was to do that, it could maintain hurricane intensity all the way to,
you're right.
well, potentially even to New England if it moved quickly.
I completely forgot about it. Let me just screen share here for a minute.
The Gulf Stream, all the way to the Outer Banks, sea surface temperatures 26 and 28 offshore.
Yeah, that's concerning to say the least. Yeah, that's not good. I completely forgot about the Gulf Stream. Yeah, that's a concern. That could keep the storm a little bit stronger than if it were to be closer to the coast. So, I don't know, maybe staying offshore would be the best case scenario. Obviously the best case scenario, but for this storm's health and for the United States. Um,
Maybe, I don't know. It
well,
all depends how far away from
well,
land.
yeah, yeah, true. But the thing is, just because it's offshore does not mean you're not going to get impacts. It's still going to be relatively large in size, like we just discussed. Um, at least possibly getting close to. I don't know how large it is right now. It's Winfield. I would think is growing slightly, but it's grown slightly,
Hmm.
um, and it should continue to have that gradual growth. So I would say it'd probably be a couple. Hurricane force winds would probably be at least. It's still below 100 miles across, but tropical storm force winds could be up to 200 miles across. Um, and we're not talking about Sandy size. No, 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 no. That was something.
Not
I
at
know.
all.
I know a lot of people got Sandy on their minds because it's a recent storm, and it seems like every storm that thinks that it might impact the U.S. is gonna get it gets compared with Sandy. You got Joaquin that was compared with Sandy, Hermine that was compared with Sandy, and now this is being compared with Sandy.
It's got no comparison. The best comparison is
It really
Hazel, and
doesn't.
that's a bad comparison. Is that now, Recon?
Yes, it is.
Ah,
And
what are
looks
they
like
getting?
they're heading in towards the eye right now. So within the next couple of at least 10 minutes, we should probably have the information from them. Um, so
Oh, there's us.
and there's us. So in short, Matthew is probably causing some devastation in
Hmm.
Haiti. Hate to say it, the death toll right now is reportedly only 2 in Haiti, but that is something that's going to rise, I feel, significantly because damage figures really don't start coming in until after the storm has passed. But what's interesting about this is that so far we've had 4 deaths in the Dominican Republic, which is more than Haiti. But I think that's because they've been having less of the weather. So, it's
Better
Haiti's
communications.
better communications over there. True. So Haiti is probably gonna rise significantly. Hate to say it, but it's true. Um, Just like any storm that makes landfall in Haiti, as we discussed last night. Um, what else is there? I don't really want to go through computer malls right now. I don't feel like that's something we really need to go through at this moment. But how about we just take a look at the track
The
guidance,
spread.
actually. Spread, yeah. So pretty tight consensus
Except one.
except one, but that's
What
just
on
an
earth is
outlier.
that What is it doing?
Who knows?
That would be
Um,
crazy.
yeah, pretty much a given that the thing's gonna make a landfall on the eastern tip of Cuba, move up through the Bahamas, and possibly make a landfall on Andros Island. That's basically the big
Hmm.
island of
But
the
as you can
Bahamas.
see, the consensus is not yet there for a Florida landfall,
Not
and
yet there. That's true.
nor is it there for any of the Carolinas, even though a lot of the models say that it could go that way.
Hmm.
Again, it's too early to tell for the Carolinas, but for Florida, just keep watching. Make
Hmm.
sure that everything, well, all along the East Coast, I suppose, make sure everything is in order. Make sure you know where everything is if you need it. Evacuation plans are in order, and not yet to put them into action, but in a day or so, maybe we will be saying that for Florida, but nowhere near time yet.
Possibly. Um, but yes, we're not going to have a good idea of what's going to happen with the Carolinas until at least Thursday or Friday. Florida, we have a pretty good idea right now that it's probably not going to make a landfall, but that doesn't mean it won't make a landfall. It's still very possible this thing could do a David and ride up the coast, um, and then make a landfall, in the Savannah area of Georgia, um, or it could just, be one of those storms that rides up the East Coast. Maybe, just there's no comparison to the storm with the track. As you said earlier, Hazel is probably the best comparison, and that's just not even that great either. Because this is just an anomalous track. I've never seen anything like it.
It is anomalous.
Hmm. Yeah, just looking at
But
some of the comments.
every time a storm's taken a track like this, there aren't many examples, but ones that
Hmm.
have, it's usually spelt bad news.
Hmm. Callie Adamson asked, responding to Steven, but I think it's something we could answer ourselves. Will they be evacuated? I think you're talking about Florida specifically. I've heard some reports that some of the Walmarts are losing stock rather quickly, which I think good for people for being precautious. Yes, but it's still just follow all evacuation orders. Just make sure you have things ready. Canned food, water, clothes, phone charger, flashlight, batteries, that sort of stuff that you need basically it's stuff that you'll need for at least a good week, I'd say. And okay, and Brad Payne asks, hey guys, what's going to happen in South Carolina? Like we discussed earlier, we still don't know. Tune back in on Thursday or Friday, and we'll have a better idea of where the storm is going to...
Wednesday, even.
Well, yes, Wednesday maybe, but, I guess we'll have the best idea on, Wednesday at least. At least Wednesday, but just keep an eye on the forecast from the NHC and from your local weather office. Yeah. Abdullah Amari is saying Nicole might push Matthew towards Florida. I don't know about that.
Nah, it'd be the other way around. Matthew.
Yeah, it'd be the other way around.
It'll
actually
push Nicole.
Yeah, or absorb Nicole. It could be like Wilma and Alpha. Alpha just gets absorbed, which is another reason why the storm should have been named. Anyways, yeah, that's what's going on with comments. Excuse me. Sorry.
There's the models for Nicole looking a bit confused.
Where's Nicole?
Shouldn't spend much time looking at those, I suppose.
Yeah.
Most of them out to sea.
Then again, it doesn't really deserve our time. Yeah, that thing is probably going to be yet another weak tropical storm that, is probably peaking right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Satellite. For one, I'm not even looking at it, and I know it's already poor. It's got it. At least it's got a closed circulation. I will give it that, but it's still pathetic.
Yeah, there it is.
It at least has that. But I hate that I'm praising a storm for having closed circulation. But
we may as well take a look at some of these models, Hank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I'm already on the Tropical Davis website, so why not? GFS is saying that the system will ride through the Bahamas, not make a landfall in Florida, skim the Carolinas, pretty close to a landfall, but not quite, and then moves on out to sea. With Nicole, doesn't even recognize it as a tropical storm. That's just sad. HCMWF is saying that this is from last night, so it's a little bit outdated, but it still works. That the storm is going to ride up Florida coast. That looks like it could be a landfall in North Carolina, but just barely. It could be like an Arthur, where it just barely makes landfall in the Outer Banks. That's what they're saying. The CMC is saying, oh yeah, by the way, not much for Nicole at all. CMC is saying that, this ridge actually builds in quite far west. That's almost to at least Jackson, Mississippi. That's pretty far. It's much further west than I've been seeing, which, makes it have a landfall in at least North Carolina, at least. There's some people just over here, like, wondering what I'm doing. Nav Gem. It's fine. It's fine. Nav Gem is the 12Z's not available yet. Should be coming out quite soon. But last night they're saying it could re-enter the Gulf, and it says it's going to do a fay and ride up the Florida Peninsula.
Looks like it's over Lake Okeechobee as well there.
That's a good point. Really? That's not good. And then re-emerges into the Atlantic, and looks like it will make another landfall from there. HWRF, aka God Model, is saying that
Model of the Year 2016 here.
Yeah, just got a big gust of wind, so if my background noise is kind of bad, I apologize. And
we'll let you know.
Yeah, seems like the 12Z is still coming out. Thing rides up the Bahamas. No landfall in Florida. Landfall at least I think that's near Charleston. I'm not entirely sure of the geography of South Carolina. And then right up the East Coast, but not emerging back over water.
And
GFDL.
what was the landfall intensity on that?
Landfall intensity said at least, I believe it said at least, it's a 10 millibar winds, yes. That is a Cat 2 landfall.
Category 2 landfall.
In South Carolina. And yeah, so GFDL is saying that Matthew will, just kind of do a similar thing. Closer to Florida, it looks like. Landfall at least near Myrtle Beach.
And then moving in a significantly different direction. HWRF had it.
As a Cat 1. But just because the system's a Cat 1 does not mean that it's not going to do anything,
943 millibars as Cat 1.
Oh my.
Is that true?
That's anomalous. I think the HWRF is saying 935 as a Cat 3.
That's 10-minute wind speed, isn't it? So you want to add a little bit onto that.
Yeah, true.
That's at least high-end Cat 2.
Probably.
And the HWRF probably had Cat 3.
Probably. That's basically what the models are saying. Let's check on Recon real quick.
Yeah, news.
Looks like Recon is approaching the center, but they're not quite the exact center yet. They've got their fix right now at 952 millibars.
952.
Where it is
still pretty low.
Still could drop a millibar or two as it gets closer to the center.
Yeah, they had 950 at the last advisory.
Did they? Oh yeah, they did. 15 millibar rise. That's interesting. With no change in winds.
I think they will change it next time. I reckon it's probably maybe low-end Category 4 now. But the possibility for it to re-intensify. Just going to see if there's any new satellite imagery to tell you about.
While you're pulling that up, I'll look at some of the comments. Tony Estello says, do you think Tampa will get flooded again? Last time it was really bad. Last time, are you referring to Hermine? This storm is very likely not to enter the Gulf. It's probably going to stay in the Atlantic, on the Atlantic side of Florida. So Tampa, you're probably going to get some rain from this system, maybe some gusty winds, and that's about it. I don't know how much rain specifically, but I would say, expect some, inclement weather later this week. Let's see. What else is there? So there were noise collector says so there will only be one cat. Are you talking about Cat 1? One cat. I think I'll just say that you're referring to Cat 1. Landfall intensity is not necessarily certain at this point. We still.
Indeed, if it makes a landfall.
Or if it makes a landfall, that's a good point. But it's still just not very certain at this point. At this moment. Yes.
One thing I'm going to say about this, if models continue to trend west and the forecast cone continues to trend west, I'd be prepared to say that a landfall has become likely for the United States. In about 12 or 24 hours, I'll probably start saying that. So until then, the storm's still on the wrong side of Cuba, so there's a lot that could happen yet.
Here's a pretty good question from Fairly Cope asking, will Matthew speed up after it passes Cuba?
It should do a little.
Probably. Not by a whole lot, but it should, at least gain some forward speed. Because this system has been moving anomalously slow pretty much ever since Friday. Been moving quite slow. And it almost came to a crawl when it became a quote-unquote Cat 5.
It did.
Basically a crawl. So, yeah, you got that satellite imagery up? Let me just see if I can refresh. Yeah, it doesn't look all that much different to me. I know there's a new frame, it just doesn't look that much different.
I know on the infrared imagery it appears to be waning, and it's waiting for another blow-up, I would say. If that happens, the storm probably keeps its strength or category 4, but the way it's looking, it's probably going to go down a category, unless it does something.
Probably a category or 2. It could get down to Cat 3. Excuse me, Cat 2. But then re-strengthen in the Bahamas.
It's still at least a category 3, definitely.
Probably. So Recon has not refreshed. You probably shouldn't within the next 5 minutes anyways. But yeah. So it's looking, I guess, yeah, it looks like it's just, but looking at that last frame, it looks like the eye might be trying to pop out a little bit yet again. The system has just been, stubborn to, change intensity. It's been basically a mid-Cat 4 for the past at least 72 hours. At least around that range.
What was that, sorry?
Did my mic cut out?
No, I wasn't listening.
Oh. Well, the storm's basically been hovering around mid-Cat 4 for at least a good 72 hours now.
Yeah, well,
maybe
it's maintained category 4 intensity for nearly 5 days.
That's got to be a record of some sort in the Caribbean. Or at least in the Eastern Caribbean.
No, possibly, but it's the second highest in the Caribbean this century after Ivan.
Oh, yeah, Ivan. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this storm, kind of moving in a track like Ivan/Felix until it got to the northern tip of Colombia and then started to, make this...
That's where the similarities end.
Basically, where all similarities to any storm end, except for maybe, possibly Hazel. But that's besides the point. I can't really imagine what could be going on in Haiti right now. I've been trying to keep my mind off that. I just don't want to, think about that right now. It might sound a little bit wrong of me, but I just don't want to think of, people, suffering or anything like that. I guess while we're at it, I want to talk about Chaba really quick.
What was a Category 5 typhoon in the Western Pacific, now weakening substantially, as I said it would, due to that. Well, is it the wind shear that's done it?
It's a combination of wind shear, an hour replacement cycle, dry air, and cooler sea surface temperatures as it's moving northward.
Yeah.
So it's moving a bit further north than I thought it would. I think maybe Korea would be a bit more impacted by this than I thought it would. It looks like the island of Jeju, that big island right there, is getting some pretty bad weather right now. It looks like it might end within the next few hours, but still some inclement weather for them. For the main peninsula of Korea, more of the same. Just expect some inclement weather. I wouldn't not necessarily say it's just I think this is still a Cat 3. Because I think it's a 110 knots, so that's a Cat 3.
Yeah, it's bad news for South Korea and Japan.
Yeah. I think the last big storm I can remember that affected Korea, like big storm, was Miami in 2003. I think there's probably one after that. I just can't put my finger on it right now.
There was one before. I believe.
One before Miami. I'm just talking about the most recent one.
Yeah. Well, Hank, at this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break until the start of the next hour, at least. I'm not sure whether we may be taking an extended break or not, but we're going to take a short break, at least 10 minutes, whilst we gather our thoughts, and we'll bring you the latest on Matthew after this. Stay tuned. We've got more to come.